So without further ado, we've got 2 microphones the panel's going to share between you. If we start from this side, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but if you could first give them a nice warm round of applause.
Good to see you all. I'm really excited to share everything with you, everything I know. Hopefully you'll ask every question you have about link building or digital PR, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them in the best way possible and give extreme value to you tonight. I'm Fery, of course, from Search Intelligence. We are a digital PR agency and we build lots of links, and hopefully we can share our secrets tonight.
Hi, I'm Jo. I'm a freelance digital PR consultant type thing. I had a 5-hour train to get here today, so please don't ask really complicated questions. I've also had a couple of really nice sandwiches and a few beers, so if we can keep the questions quite simple, that would be fantastic.
Hi, I'm Lydia Fox. I'm the outreach manager at Atlas SEO. I've been working in link building and digital PR for about 4 years internationally.
Hello, I'm Tabby Farrar. I am the Principal Content and Digital PR Consultant at Candour, which is a lot of words. This week is actually the 8th anniversary of me doing PR. I used to do really bad PR, and then I learned that it was bad, and now I do good PR.
Okay, so I've already got people voting on the questions that we had pre-submitted. So I'll start with one of these. After we've done the first couple of questions, as I say, stick your hand up if you've got more. I'm very proud to say that it was my question that's actually been voted. And it's a doozy. Oh, okay. There's another one that's just actually beaten it, which says, Fery promised me a handstand. We'll come back to that one. So the first question for the panel today. So this is hypothetical. We're not saying you're involved in this. And feel free, anyone, to kind of jump in. If you were going to buy links, so this is your task, how would you go about doing it without getting caught by Google?
You said it right. We don't buy links, and that's on purpose. We don't even have like a guest post service. We could have. We have the systems for guest posts, but we kept it just digital PR. But if we would be to buy links and pretend that we didn't buy them, then you would just go and make it look like a research article instead of being the typical guest post article. As like just insert the exact match anchor text in the article. Why not make it a research article, almost like a PR type of article, where you say, the client name has researched this and that, and they have come to this conclusion, and that's how you insert the link. So you would just have to make it look like a genuine article, and there's no way Google would actually be able to differentiate it. As a human, maybe if you're like a human, you might just go and maybe you will look at the link profile, like the outgoing links on that website, and you could say, yes, this website is kind of dodgy, they are definitely selling links. But from Google's perspective, if you make it look like almost like a news article, there's no way they can differentiate, because those websites actually syndicate lots of other, Mirror and The Sun and the other articles sometimes. And that's how I would do, just make it look like a research piece instead of just a random guest blog that everyone is doing.
Okay, so first up, I'll give you a bit of background about me. Before I moved to digital PR, I used to be a journalist. I can't keep secrets. I tell everyone things I shouldn't tell them. I would be the absolute worst person to ask or pay to do something under the cover. My whole MO is getting things out from the covers, you know, telling people about people's brands, talking about things, causing a stir, making trouble. So if I was given this task, I would pay someone else to do it for me. It was far more subtle, far more discreet, and just far more quiet than me. I couldn't do this, sorry, so I'll pass on that one, I'm afraid.
I think if I was to be doing it, I'd be analysing the client, looking at who would link to them naturally that isn't currently linking to them, and then figure out a way to insert a link within a blog post, with guest posting, we've all heard about it, where they're not already linking to the client that I'm working for, but could be and should be.
Yeah, so obviously I wouldn't, but if I did, I would call a journalist and offer them all the money I had to please put the link in, and that is all I would do.
What I wouldn't do.
Follow-up question. I want a yes or no answer from everyone. In your career, have you ever paid for a link?
Yes, before we had a digital PR service, we used to build like hundreds or like probably thousands of guest blogs. So yeah, we paid lots of money for links, yes.
No, and if I'm honest, I'll try and get away without paying for most things. So if I can get something for free, I will do that, yeah.
One word, yes.
Yeah, my first ever job doing PR, we used to pay for basically everything. Our pitches would go out with like, I have this much money, will you post my story? It was only later on that we realised that was bad.
I like how I asked for a yes or no answer, and it's such a loaded question in the industry. I was like, well, in my last job, which I don't do anymore, thank you for your honesty. I've actually got a question here that came in before the event as well that's related to this, so I want to skip to that now. I'm really interested to get your opinion on this. It's a question from Jens, and he's asking, and this is something you mentioned, Fery, is Google clever enough to ignore bad/spam links? And does this mean setting up bad links against competitors, and he's written still works? Some of my clients are convinced that they suffer from that. So the question is basically, if we're saying Google can or can't tell, can we harm competitors by buying them bad links basically, or is Google just ignoring it? You can, whoever can start, whoever you like.
Yep. You go first, I'll go next.
I think this is a hit and miss, so it can work, and I've seen it work with some with some competitors and some industries. I even have a friend who's got like a network of 30 websites, and he said, let me spam one of my competitors' websites, and the website went back on page 2, and it stayed there for like a year. But now, the number 1 ranking website for that, the main term, is the actual spammed competitor. I know how it works, but they actually went down for a year, and then after that, now they dominate Google for like the searches. So I think Google kind of didn't figure it out initially, that it's like artificial, or it's like on purpose, and then eventually they figured it out, and then they probably dismissed the bad links, and they only kept some of the links that they thought were good, and now they're like number 1. So it can work, but I wouldn't do it, because I think it can backfire. It can it can come back from like behind and slap you.
Yeah, so I was going to say, on the whole, I think Google is really good at just ignoring crappy links. I think from doing link spam audits and looking at how waves of spam align with a site's performance, that in the last few years of doing them, generally there hasn't really been a correlation. You go, yeah, loads of spam appeared and nothing actually happened. I have once in the past had a client who rocked up needing help because they'd had a manual penalty handed out. And in among the things that had them flagged for that, and it was link manipulation, link spam, some of them were their own guest posts that they had done, some of them were their competitor guest posts where they had put really obvious clunky looking links in, but they'd also linked to their own informational content with slightly more natural links, but they made it look like they were guest posts from this client that was also doing guest posts. And that was sort of interesting to see that, I guess, if you are doing dodgy spam stuff and then someone else tries to also do it, then that can hurt you. But on the whole, I think the algorithms and the everything is generally pretty good at knowing that crap is crap and just not looking at it.
Obviously, the algorithm is usually good enough to see straight through it if there is have an influx of Russian links and all of that sort of stuff coming to your site, they are usually good enough to detect them. But in the event you're ever working for a client where this does happen and you do see some negative impact, disavow them, just get rid of them.
Okay, I'm not a tech SEO. I know that there's a big kind of issue and debate within the tech SEO community. Should you disavow bad links? Can people use these kind of link spam attacks against their competitors? What I will say though is I do, and you know, this is just my opinion, I've got no technical basis for this. I think that sometimes it's really easy to kind of look at outside reasons that something isn't doing too well, rather than kind of looking at your own processes and thinking about what you could be doing. It's a lot easier to just go, you know, our competitor has done this, they've done this to harm our site, and this is why Google is angry at us. I don't know, it's an opinion thing.
I have a question.
Let's see the question.
Fantastic. If Google can differentiate from spamming and links and there are penalties, then why are there penalties? So if they can differentiate, the algorithm can take them out, then why would they penalise the site? Because they wouldn't be able to differentiate between the link. Does Google that?
Yeah, so in the case of the site that I was working with, it was that they had seen evidence of deliberate link manipulation. So it was, so not that, so like lots of automated spam, or, you know, there's lots of spam that looks very automated.
Yeah.
I think that it's the difference between Google automatically discounting stuff that's like just bots and just kind of the natural shitstorm of the internet, and stuff that looks like a person has done it on purpose in the hope of boosting their ranking.
That's my question. How do they differentiate?
I mean, in that case, there was some natural coverage that also got picked up as well. So the things that have been flagged were where there were links to commercial pages that were on keyword-rich anchor text, and in pieces of content that, while they were vaguely interesting, they were not like super expert, really useful. It was kind of like fluffy lifestyle blogs, like stuff that you could see 100 versions of the same article. But it was very clearly like a very optimized, you could see there was an SEO element of the activity there. One of the things that got flagged was actually a piece of press coverage where it was a press release that had naturally been picked up by another website, but within that there was a link to a product page on keyword-rich anchor text, and so that got pulled up as, well, this is also unnatural, even though that wasn't something that's been paid for, even though that was part of real PR activity. And you can't try and argue the case with that with Google, because we did. And it was like, no, that's manipulation, just like all the rest of it is. So yeah, that answers the question.
So just to clarify, when you say penalize, you do mean manual penalty, right?
Yeah.
I think in the case of manual penalty, Google systems raise like a red flag internally, and the manual penalty means somebody, like a human, looks at the links and they assess it like for the second time with like a common sense human eyes, and that's when they decide, oh well, these guest blogs look very dodgy. Yeah, we know this Russian influx of like links, but you can tell, like even we can tell when we go to Ahrefs and say, these guys have been buying links from these dodgy blogs. We know because all of them are like, you can tell the pattern. So I think in that case, human reviews it and then they decide, yes, they're buying it. So I don't think Google can actually detect it accurately, but then it can raise a flag and then a person goes in and they kind of detect it with a human common sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of that happens in waves as well. I was listening to an engineer about this, and they were saying when they do manual action waves, they do it as waves so that a lot of it comes at once, and you can't identify specifically maybe what was flagged. But yeah, I think historically someone's manually intervened, which is interesting because they're just pattern matching, and computers are really good at pattern matching.
And they could be wrong as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Everyone says they're wrong. They're innocent. Any other questions on this topic before we move on about buying links, spamming links, all the underbelly? Okay, so to push it out a bit then, we've got a question from lovely friend of ours, Anu Helmans, who asks, what is the most creative link building you have ever seen? Any hat goes.
I'm going to be a little bit of a kiss ass here. The most creative one, you could probably say better than this, but it was something to do with job roles for like video game characters, like Mario being a plumber and whatnot. That I thought was absolutely genius. I was absolutely baffled. And I was like, that was one of the ones where I was like, I wish I had thought that myself.
Thank you. That was one of ours.
I'm still thinking.
Do you want me to go? So I've told this before when people have asked me, and I use it as an example because it wasn't kind of done intentionally as a digital PR piece of work. I was working with, I wasn't working with a client, actually we were trying to pitch this client, and I was doing backlink analysis, looking at the kind of links they'd got. They had the spammy links, the rubbish links, the crap stuff. And then they had loads of links every October from all the kind of local press around them. I think they were like a used car dealership, somewhere up in Yorkshire. They had all these links that came in every October from all the kind of the local press and some national press. And it turns out that they were based fairly near the owner's son's school, I believe, and every October they would put a giant inflatable monster tentacle thing coming out of the building just for Halloween, just for the kids. And it became like a known thing locally, and every year the local press would write about it. And then linked to his business. He didn't know that what he was doing was link building. It wasn't intentionally creative, it was just done as a bit of a kind of cute community thing. And it was brilliant, because he hadn't set out to do digital PR, but essentially that's what he'd been doing. I just really liked it, I thought it was cute.
Right, I've thought of one. It's not like I've seen many. There was a Compare the Market campaign a few years ago that was to do with the depth of the UK's potholes. They had created an interactive graphic where you could just keep burrowing down and down and down to the depth of, if you added up all of the potholes in the United Kingdom, and you passed like the Eiffel Tower and the Mariana Trench and various other things, and then as you went deeper and deeper it sort of racked up the cost of repairing them and which part of the country was where the holes stopped. So I think Wales had slightly less, so they were slightly higher up in the ditch, which then linked through obviously to all their service pages and things. But yeah, that got hundreds of pieces of coverage and was just fun to play with as well.
Potholes are the biggest link magnet in the UK. It's the hottest topic. If you want certain links, just do pothole campaigns and guaranteed coverage. And one of the campaigns that I liked was quite creative, was done by an agency called Reboot. I don't want to talk about our campaigns. I talk about Reboot Online. They've done a campaign called The Sexiest Bald Man. And they analyzed Google search volumes based on popular bald man. And then sexy, and then the Prince of Wales, or like whatever. Which prince is like? Oh,
I think it was William that ended up.
Yeah, Prince William. Yeah, sexy and Prince William, and then sexy. Like some.
Phil Mitchell.
Yeah. like celebrities who are bald, and then they looked at the keywords that where the sexy precede their names. And then whichever had the most search volume said that's the sexiest bald man in the world. And they pushed it out. It was like very controversial. Like on Twitter, it blew up. Like everyone like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean he's the sexiest? And then Vin Diesel, and how comes it's not Vin Diesel, but how comes it's this other person? It was very controversial. But it got like I think hundreds of links, and it was a hair transplant company who they'd done it for. So quite relevant. I think that was very, very creative.
Stick your hand up as we go if you've got any other questions apart from these. We've got quite a few now here. So, BB, the link builder, how do you guesstimate whether a campaign will work or not? That's a doozy.
You go.
Everyone's going. I feel like it's one of those things that the ones that you think will do really well quite often don't, and the ones that you think won't do well but it's what you're going to run with are the ones that do the best. And I think if you are going to guesstimate, I would think to myself, would I be interested in this? Would I read this? Would I publish this? And if you can't answer all three questions with a yes, then it's probably not going to be that successful.
Yeah, I think for consumer-facing stuff, it's if I mention it to my partner or my friend or whoever, or someone I know that has an interest loosely in the thing and they get excited about it, I'm like, oh, maybe I want something here. If it's a B2B piece, I would probably just look at all the publications I want to target. Do they talk about that kind of thing all the time? Because they're a lot easier to please. They tend to do the same shit over and over and over again. So I would probably just go, do they already do this? I'll give them more of that. Whereas with the consumer stuff, it would be, has nobody done this already? If so, then I will give them that.
Yeah, good point. The safest way to always guess if a campaign is going to work is just look at the previous articles of those titles, and if they are consistently writing about it, that's the safe route to a good campaign that will land links. Otherwise, I mean, if you are going to go outside of that, you would probably have to think of some backup campaigns. Let's say if a client expects some links, you have to tell them, hey, we're going to go into this territory, we'll go a bit wild, nobody has ever talked about this, but we also have 2 or 3 safe campaigns that we can run for you if this is not going to land links, right? So I think if you go outside the topics that are usually being covered, or like you would go a bit crazy, you should always have 1 or 2 or 3 backup campaigns that you can plug in so that the client is happy. It might pay off really well if, like the Mario game, right? Super Mario game character, it was a very unique one, and we thought it might or might not land. But then we also had some extra campaigns that we said to the client, if this is not going to work, then we launch some other ones. So that's how I would approach. Yeah.
So I'm trying to think really how to put into words that someone here hasn't already said, but I think ultimately a lot of what everyone's kind of mentioned is what we used to call in journalism like news sense. This idea of, is it newsworthy? We used to have this really horrible expression in journalism, if it bleeds, it leads. And it's that idea that is something going to cause conflict? Is it shocking? Will it get people arguing about it? A lot of what journalists are KPI'd on these days is engagement on social. So it's not even things like how long people spend on the page. It's really about the engagement they are going to get on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter. Is it going to get shared? Are people going to comment on it? And a lot of the stuff that does well has that kind of element of conflict where people will debate what has been said. So the example Fery used of the Reboot campaign, again, about bald celebrities, sexiest bald man, is because we know that we would go on there and argue. I don't think Prince William's that sexy. I think there are sexier bald men out there. So would I then be, would I be sat there at the end of the day with my glass of wine? I'd see this come up on my Facebook feed, and I think it would trigger me. I would think, no, he's not even the sexiest prince. Come on. So I would comment that, and that's what these journalists want. They've got KPIs to hit as well, and that conflict and that kind of sense of understanding something that's really going to get people talking in the pub or on Facebook is what they're looking for. So it's what we should be looking for to get things covered. Yeah.
And I add something else as well. Sorry, just shut me up. Just coming back to what Fery was saying about kind of backup campaigns. For larger stuff, a lot of the data-led stuff and creative stuff that we do, I tend to think that it's always good to have within that campaign itself, like multiple angles of pitching and outreach. Because often it will be the case that what we thought was the main angle, that's the thing we'll focus on, and then we'll have these little bits on the side, and there'll be like a nice backup, a bit of extra stuff, maybe there'll be some links there. Often it's the second or the third thing that's the bit that goes bad, and you go, oh, the thing that was obvious turned out to be obvious. Turns out the thing that was less obvious was the thing we should have been looking at the whole time. And yet anything that's more than probably a couple of days of investment, I would always want to have at least 2 pitching angles, if not a third, and anything beyond that is a dream.
So I think you might have covered this a bit, Joe, but I've got a question for Joe. What is it about having been a journalist that makes you a good link builder?
Probably that news sense, and it is really hard to define what news sense is, and it's hard to kind of teach news sense, and I think there are lots of different things you can do to kind of instill that in yourself, and a lot of the various tips that the guys here have shared that are brilliant kind of help you do that. So things like, if you know a client really wants to be in the Daily Mirror, you need to be reading the Daily Mirror, working out how they cover things. Something Fery said about potholes, the Daily Mirror love a traffic story. They love things about roundabout. I don't think roundabouts are that newsworthy as a rule, but people want to argue about roundabouts. They want to argue about potholes on Facebook. So if you're going to do a campaign around that is going to be incredibly newsworthy to the Daily Mirror because their reading public want to read about potholes and roundabouts. So, it is just read the media you want to be in, read the media your clients want to be in, see the way they formulate their headlines, see the way they use expert commentary and mimic that for your clients. A lot of it is just a mimicry and trying to recreate what... And journalism's like that. I think Fery said again earlier that the news is cyclical, so every year you have stories about heat waves and hosepipe bans. Every year you have stories about whether it's going to be a white Christmas, whether it's going to be freezing on the streets at Christmas, whatever. That will come around every year, and you can kind of start to predict that if you're in the news or working the news.
Thank you. One to think about. We're going to do a different question, but here's one, because I've got a question for Fery, but for everyone else, there's a question here. Can you think of an example of a great PR campaign that bombed, or a completely rubbish campaign that suddenly took off and did really well? And question for Fery is, how do you and your team come up with the creative and fun ideas?
Should we do the first question?
To answer that,
Oh, okay.
They can think about that.
So, I think having a large team is useful when coming up with ideas. We have a Slack channel, like reactive PR, and then digital PR channel where everyone just shares everything. Sometimes even HR shared something, or like somebody from another department shares a news story. Like when Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk announced they're going to fight, one of our team members from another department shared like, hey, this is news, and this is perfect. We can put our fitness client forward to comment on this, and then we got like 50 links. We just one expert commented, and it's because somebody else commented. So I would encourage every department to actually share things that they find interesting in a common channel. And that's where the power of lots of brains come together, and that's where the creative ideas come to surface, when everyone is collaborating and working towards the common good of the whole body, right? So just create a channel where regardless of where what they do, and the company just share everything, even the HR person or everyone should share, and that's how we I think that's the most innovative channel for us.
It's a really good point as well for when people get jobs internally in-house to do things like digital PR and they're on their own, and it's just like, okay, go build the links now, and you're just kind of on your own in a room, like, ideas. So yeah, really helpful to have a team vibrant Slack channel. Do we have any ideas of rubbish campaigns or great campaigns that bombed?
Are you going to go first, or?
I've thought of one good one that didn't go very well. The reason why will become clear. Really good campaign, or what should have been a really good campaign that I can think of, was for an international money transfer app. It was an international survey. There were responses from people all over Europe that were put together in this big interactive map thing, and it was insights into people's attitudes towards sending money as gifts, things people did or did not like to receive as gifts, weird things that people have got, weird things people have searched for that they wanted as a gift. There was tons of different stuff, and there were about 80 different ways that you could cut and present the data for all these different audiences. And it was just about ready to launch, and then COVID happened, and that was kind of the end of that. There was a sort of sad attempt to reframe it and to make it COVID friendly, and it didn't really work, and that remains sad for me to this day. That's all I have for you.
My mind is completely and utterly blank. I can't think of a single campaign.
Excellent.
Okay, I'll go. I'm going to do that classic tabloid thing now. I've completely contradicted everything I've said tonight. New sense is great. Thinking that you understand the media that you want to be in is great. But honestly, I have done some, I think, amazing campaigns that are completely and utterly bombed. I've done some kind of really pretty rubbish campaigns that have done incredibly well. Sometimes you just don't understand how the media works. Sometimes a lot of digital PR is pure luck. Honestly, probably shouldn't say that, I've said it. Timing, exactly what you're saying about COVID. I can't imagine the amount of hero campaigns that agencies around the country were working on for going out, spring cleaning, all this stuff that was going to happen in March 2020 that didn't happen because the world shut down, and everyone was just talking about one subject for a really long time. I know I was working on, this is going to sound really quite unpleasant, I was working on some stuff with the age she was at the time when the Queen died. That wasn't good. A lot of things had to be scrapped then because the news cycle just changed overnight. There will always be stories in the press that become the story. The invasion of Ukraine, things like that, where things just happen and everything has to be shelved. And it's not that your campaign's bad, it's just that the timing was never going to be right. And you can pivot things, you can put a pin in things, you can hold things, but yeah, there will always be good campaigns that will not do well. And really bad campaigns that seem to do really well.
I have just thought of a bad one, actually. I'm not going to say who did it. There was a campaign that performed really, really well, where it was like, you can win this competition and you'll get to stay in this really amazing themed, specific venue that was to do with a pop culture thing, but it wasn't real. And like anyone that recognises AI imagery, which is hopefully most people, like you could tell from the pictures that this wasn't a thing that actually existed that you could go and stay at. But an agency, for their client, had put together a campaign that's, yeah, cool, you can enter this competition. And it was just data harvesting so that they could sign you up to the mailing list you hadn't signed up to. But it got covered by all the national press, and it was like, are you stupid? You're not telling me that's not real. I was really bitter about that, which they haven't.
I'm just going to say, in defence of journalists, they're not usually stupid, but they are usually under pressure to write 8 articles a day. And if you want to take a lunch break, sometimes you'll just copy and paste the shit.
I think one of the campaigns that I thought was going to be going well, it was at the initial stage of us setting up the PR department in 2021. I almost cried because we spent like 2 weeks on finding out which industries are booming post-COVID, right? They've all shut down, and we spent like lots of time putting together like based on Google search volume and Google Trends. And I think we analyzed like 1,000 something keywords, and we made like nice infographics. Nice, we put it on a nice page, and we were hoping like, oh, everyone's interested in what industries are booming. Now after COVID, and we pushed it out, and nothing happened. It was the most frustrating thing ever. It wasn't just because of the data; it was because we were just figuring out. But that was the most frustrating campaign that we had at the company. Right at the beginning, we had like only 2 or 3 employees on the PR department. But if we do it now, maybe it will work because we have better process, we understand how it works now. Back then we were just figuring out. And another one that worked on the flip side, one that worked well, was I was driving. It was October 2021, and there was a massive fuel shortage in the UK where there were queues at the petrol stations. And I was driving around. In an electric car, and I was looking at the petrol stations, and I thought, these people are looking at me, and I would wonder if they will go home and they will think about buying an electric car. And I went home, I went to Google Trends, and I just put in the keyword electric cars. And yes, I was right, those people went home and they were looking for an electric car, because it had like 1,400% increase in the past day. Like the searches for electric cars exploded on that day. And I just wrote a 5 paragraphs email saying our client carguide.co.uk has discovered that due to the fuel shortage, searches for electric cars exploded 1,400%. That's it. And I said, if you are going to use this insight, just please give us a link to our client. And we had like 50 plus links with this campaign. Initially, it took me like 2 hours to put it together, push it out to car journalists, to the nationals, and boom, this was like, this is crazy, this is revolutionary. And then ever since then, we started, looking at Google, how to leverage Google Trends. But that was like the most surprising, unexpected success of the campaign.
Nice. We've got time for one more question, so here it is. Do you want to shout it, or do you want this mic?
Good. I just have a question in terms of, from the client side, obviously when you say if a campaign works or not, obviously from a client's perspective, they always want a guarantee on return of investment. So they want a guarantee of number of links, whatever. Like what do you do when you do a campaign that you think is really going to land and it doesn't, and then obviously report it to the client? Like, do you then just carry on doing different ones until it lands, or like what's your reaction to one that doesn't land? Do you have to then put in more investment of your own resources until you hit the client's target, or?
So this reaction doesn't start when the campaign is like being pitched. It starts before the client even pays the invoice. You say to the client, just to let you know, a campaign can be multiple campaigns. A campaign can land only 2 links, and we guarantee, let's say, 10 links. Therefore, we will pitch you, at the beginning, we will pitch you 5 ideas. And we want you to approve all of them, or at least 4 of them. And then we inform the client before they even come on board. Say, because nothing is guaranteed with PR, because we don't pay for links, right? Nobody pays for links in PR. Therefore, we need backup campaigns. Let's put them on the shelf. Please approve at least 4 of these 5 campaigns. And we start with this one, with the first one. We'll launch it. If it lands, happy days, we'll tick it off and we say campaign complete. Let me send you the next invoice. Or if it only lands 2 or 3 links, we'll grab the second campaign off the shelf and we'll execute it. And we'll grab the 3rd one, the 4th one, until we hit the KPIs. Yes?
So I'm super interested.
Yes.
So let's just say that they paid money for the PRs, they put the ideas, and they're like, some of them are 5. So let's just say for a cheaper price, they go to a link builder that can copy the parameters that make sure that the Google algorithm doesn't catch it. Why do people who do PR, why is that worth more than people that buy links? Because if they can guarantee a better result every single time with the same carbon copy blueprint that they won't get caught, why do they use PR instead of link builders?
Because the link builders cannot get the links on like the Mirror or like the Daily Mail or so on.
Can't they?
Well, they can, but it's going to cost like 8 grand per link. Or maybe more.
Maybe. So unless you're a journalist.
Right?
Yeah.
So if the first idea doesn't work, do you do the second idea for the same price?
We do it for the, yeah, we don't charge the client extra. We just work for free until you hit the KPIs. In most of the cases, the first idea works, but when it doesn't, then you don't want to go to a client and say, hey, well, we worked hard, but
But you're confident.
Base,
You know
yeah,
the first
exactly.
Idea, you know the first idea normally works.
We do launch 2 ideas, 2 campaigns sometimes, or 3 campaigns. I think there's a debate on LinkedIn like, oh, these PR agencies pay for links, that's how they guarantee for links. And thank you for jumping in many times, because like, no, yeah, sometimes like no, like not all PR companies pay for it. They actually work a lot of extra time to. Yeah.
What's the percentage of the first idea landing?
Probably 70%. Yeah.
So you're confident.
Yeah.
So, just to give you some context, I'm a freelancer now, so I work for myself. My answer would probably be very different if I worked for an agency or if I worked for Fery. Those business models can be set up so that they can just keep working until they hit link targets. I can't really do that because I have to pay my rent, unfortunately. Yeah, a lot of it, I think the key thing is managing expectations. What I do is earned media, it's not paid link building. You're not paying me to pay someone else for a link. You are paying me to create a piece of content, to build a story around your brand, to use your expert comment, whatever it may be. You are paying me to do my very best with my kind of knowledge, my expertise, to place that in the press and hopefully get you links back to a page. If you want the really upfront kind of honest answer, this is why I tend to do a lot of reactive PR. I prefer doing reactive PR to kind of big hero campaigns because it's a lot less resource intensive. I can do an awful lot with reactive where I can try different angles, I can do different things for the same kind of price that a big campaign would cost me. I've worked on some fantastic big campaigns that didn't land or built 3-4 links. And we spent hours of time, lots of resource, data resource, design resource, dev resource, and it just wasn't cost effective for the client. That's why I work at, a lot of what I do is reactive PR because I feel that it can be more, I don't guarantee links, but I can kind of tell that I would definitely get a certain amount of links for a client with reactive PR. It is a lot more of a gamble with campaigns, but they have their place and they are still important. We just got to be willing to take that gamble.
I think if you're doing a campaign and it doesn't play out the way that you wanted, and say you've made a guarantee to the client and it hasn't delivered the first campaign, it's more logical from a business sense of view that to try and make sure that you always meet the guarantee, even if you have to run 2, 3, 4 campaigns, because that could mean A, they come back for another campaign which does better first time round, B, they tell people they know that you did the work that you've promised, or they give you a good review, or mention you on LinkedIn or anything like that, that in the end it could actually be more beneficial than the resources that you've used in those scenarios where it doesn't work for your business than if you just say, nah, sorry, didn't work.
Yeah, I would say, going back to that, the idea of multiple campaigns, not focusing on just one, but saying we may need to call in a second or a third. that having multiple tactics on the go at any one time, not having all your eggs in one basket. It's like, yes, I'm doing a data campaign, but alongside that, there's newsjacking, there's reactive, there may be product pitching, there may be brand pitching, so that the overall volume of links is made up from lots of different things that are going on, rather than everything being on one piece of work. And I would also say there's a difference between just paying some crappy private person for links and getting an actual PR person to do them, is when you get those top tier links that would otherwise cost you 10 grand in a journalist's pocket or whatever, like when we get links from the national news for our clients, what you're also getting is brand awareness, you're getting brand trust, you're getting more for your value than just the link, you're getting exposure at a level that you don't with kind of lower and mid-tier websites where you might be able to give them a cheeky sideline and go, stick the link to my blog in your blog. Yeah, I can't, no one's going to read it, but sure, give me 50 quid and I'll do it. Like, it's better to get that coverage from those higher tier websites where actually people are going to think of you again, people are going to recognise that brand name popping up again and again, than to just keep throwing money at kind of the lower value stuff.
I think it's a really good question as well about the ROI. Lots of people ask about that, and you've got a really interesting business model that you're selling the campaigns, and that's what you're delivering. I mean, like, our agency is involved in a lot more digital PR, like technical stuff, content stuff as well. So generally how we're working is on a time basis, in that we put this much time into digital PR. Even if we kind of hit what we expect as targets, we still keep going and get even more. So it's not just we're selling that because we're interested in the traffic revenue at the end. Whereas, say people like Fery are, you're buying a specific thing from me, which is digital PR coverage. So it's really, I think, dependent on what people want to buy as well. Because if I have an internal SEO team, maybe I don't care about all the other stuff. I just want digital PR, and I want to make sure I get something for my money. Because we've had instances. I think one I can think of in like the last 5 years where everything fell flat, like for 2 months in a row. And in that case, we just tried again. And that's one of the few times we've done that. If you'll join me in thanking the panel, we've run well over, but I think it's been worth it. Thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your